From Moment to Movement with Tamara Banks has been made possible through the generous support of the Anchor Point Foundation, helping nonprofit organizations and leaders creatively solve problems in their communities around the world.
Racism is steeped into the very core of this country. And now, in 2020, Black voices are tired of being ignored, muffled, and killed. Millions of Americans are demonstrating, protesting to make their voices heard, especially Black Americans. A movement has to arise from the ashes of the moment. From Moment to Movement is a series of one-on-one truth-telling conversations with the Black community, aimed at working towards addressing police brutality and changing systemic racism.
Our guest today is Mickaela Sherman. Mickaela is a journalist and stepping into the business in these recent several months and maybe year or so. She lives in Atlanta and a graduate of Florida A&M. Mickaela, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Tamara, for having me today.
Of course. Now, like I said, you live in Atlanta, and it's been very interesting the past several weeks, really across the country. But what we know specifically about Atlanta is we've had demonstrations and protests and some violence, as I mentioned earlier. And we are all doing this in the middle of a pandemic. Tell me about how you're feeling at this moment in time, because I think it's important to note a lot of younger people, millennials, this is sort of their first big national event. You weren't either here or aware of what was going on during 9/11, which is probably the last major national and international event. How are you doing? How are you feeling about things?
At this current moment, I would say that I've been feeling a little overwhelmed with everything that's been going on. I say that because as a young person, I am just trying to figure out where I fit into this narrative. I think we as young people have thought that we have gotten past all of these social or racial injustices, and that, not saying that police brutality is not prevalent, but to see these killings like Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, and to see it on a national level has really been an eye opener for me as a young person, that, you know, we need to make a change on the levels that that we're in. So it's really been a lot for me to take it all in, but I'm really trying to figure out what actionable steps that I can take to really make a change in my community.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that I wonder if you felt like the civil rights movement that you study, you know, Dr. King, Rosa Parks, went through what they went through in order to move the civil rights movement into the Civil Rights Act. And for Dr. King, of course, gave his life. And here we are in 2020 experiencing very similar things. So that's kind of maybe I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, sort of a disconnect.
Right. And I think that's kind of why I've been in shock for the most part, is that you kind of think that you've moved past it. I feel like or America has kind of given us that fake reality that we are all free and we are all equal and we all have the same opportunities. But time after time, as we see again and again, that we really do not. So as a young person, it's really trying to figure out how we can dismantle the system, how we can come together and make these social reforms, the reforms in the police system. And we have to understand that, you know, our ancestors did put in the work, but that work doesn't stop, and that we have to continue to come together. And I feel as though we are doing a great job right now. We are slowly seeing changes, and I believe that we have to continue to keep that up so that our children's children will be able to reap the fruits that we are planting right now.
What are the conversations your scope of friends and colleagues are having right now?
I would say the conversation is really just trying to figure out where that balance is between showing that we are not going to take anything anymore, you know, giving that force. I think that's the balance between showing that force, but also really being strategic about everything. And I think our generation right now, we're kind of at the point where we're like, okay, enough is enough. The the protests that we're doing, we're actually getting noticed by political figures. So maybe we need to continue to do these things. Maybe we need to continue to post these type of things on social media to get these individuals attention. So right now, I really believe that the conversation between us is really just trying to figure out where we can make the biggest change. And I feel as though the biggest change that we believe that we can make is going out in these streets protesting and letting them know that we really want to make a change.
And have you been able to go out and protest? Do you feel, you know, for lack of a better term, safe, or maybe a different way of protesting?
I actually have not been out to protest. I've actually been donating my money to different causes. I really don't feel comfortable going out and protesting, and that's not my way that I feel that I can show my support in the best way. I am more of a strategic person. I like to sit down and see where my voice can be heard the most, not saying that those that are out there protesting are not helping to the cause, but I feel I best serve really sitting down, trying to figure out where I can make the most change and donating my money to organizations that are already really coming together and making those changes in our community.
Mm-hmm. Are you feeling optimistic, or are you feeling sort of like, oh, wow, here we go again. My parents and grandparents fought for this, and it doesn't seem like the needle is moving, and maybe feeling more frustrated than optimistic?
At the beginning, I was a little frustrated. I can't lie. I was really frustrated because it's just disheartening to see that this is a repetitive thing that continues to happen for so many years. But I am beginning to feel a lot optimistic about what's going on. That if we continue to fight, if we continue to demand that we want these changes, then we will eventually get there. I think we should not get discouraged by what we're seeing right now, because it's a part of the growing pains of making a change. So I believe if we continue to stick together, we continue to protest, we continue to sit down and try and make strategic plans to further ourselves, we would definitely get to where we want to be in the future.
As an up-and-coming journalist, how do you feel about the way the news has been covered across the spectrum and the various channels, be it locally, nationally, internationally, left, right, main, down the middle of the road? Because I know you're a news watcher. That's what you do. That's what you study. What are your thoughts?
Right. I would say CNN, I've been watching them a lot, has been doing a really good job with letting the viewers know when the looting and the protests was happening, that is just not African Americans that are out there that are doing that. And it was so interesting to watch that majority of the videos that I was seeing on social media, on national television, were Caucasians that were taking part in the looting, and a majority part of that. But with other news outlets, I didn't necessarily see them trying to inform viewers that it wasn't just one particular group of people. So as a journalist coming into the industry, I really want to make sure that I do a good job with those storytellings, and I do a good job with actually depicting what's going on, because the media is so powerful and is so influential, and what you show can change the narrative of how people view a certain type of person. So I really feel as though, as journalists and people that work in the news industry, we really do have to do a better job with telling people's authentic stories. Because me watching from Atlanta and something going on in California, if the news is telling me one thing, and I am only left up to believe what the news is saying unless I do that extra research, and a lot of people aren't doing that. So I really think it's kind of been half and half, but I've been seeing still a lot of people leaning towards that. It's a lot of African Americans that are out here looting and being destructive when that's really not the case. It's a lot of other groups that are really trying to come in and band together with us to make a change, and I love seeing that.
So this show is about giving Black voices a platform to be heard. Folks that don't always get called by CNN or Fox or MSNBC to be on the air to get their thoughts and be heard. What is something that you'd like to say or that you think is relevant and important for the white mainstream community in this country to know or to be aware of or to try to understand from a Black woman's perspective?
I would say that our traumas are real. I think a lot of white people don't understand that we deal with trauma each and every day. For me personally, I have a Black brother, of course, but he just to think that at any moment him going out could be the last moment. I think that's one of the things that scares me the most, because my brother, he likes to walk a lot. So we saw with the Ahmaud Arbery situation, he was on a jog and he was killed while he was jogging. So I would want to tell those white individuals that, you know, we are dealing with a lot of trauma. And sometimes the trauma, that how we deal with that trauma is not presented in the best way or in the best light. But we are really trying to move forward, and we are really trying to come to a common ground. We really want to see change. We really want to see our people on the same level as everyone else. We want those same opportunities. And we are just at the point where we are going to continue to demand those things. So I would just say, just give us some time and we will eventually get to where we want to be.
Great. Mickaela Sherman, up and coming journalist in Atlanta. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts and insights with us. You be safe and healthy out there, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Tamara.
You bet. And thank you all for watching. If you want to find out more information about From Moment to Movement, just go to pbs12.org. I'm Tamara Banks, and we'll see you next time.
From Moment to Movement with Tamara Banks has been made possible through the generous support of the Anchor Point Foundation, helping nonprofit organizations and leaders creatively solve problems in their communities around the world.